I'm based in Albany, so just up the road. I'm excited to work with all of you on the Albany Avenue, Ulster Avenue Corridor Management Plan. This is the first meeting of the Technical Advisory Committee. You are the Technical Advisory Committee. Welcome. We're going to talk a little bit about, your roles and our roles and UCTC's role. We're going to talk a little bit about the corridor, and then we're going to get to we'll talk a little bit about the project itself, and then we're going to get to the fun stuff, which is talking about the street, which I know is what we're all here for. So I can let maybe Ryan, you want to?
Yeah, please. Good morning, everybody. I know most of you, but there's definitely some new faces. My name's Brian Slack. I am the Deputy Director of the Ulster County Transportation Council. We're here in Kingston at our at the offices at the Planning Department. Our Director, Dennis Doyle, might join us in a moment. I'm also joined with Chris Seeger, who is our Senior Transportation Planner here with UCTC. We're really excited to get this project underway. This project, just to talk really briefly about the history, was requested through a joint application to our office from the City of Kingston and the Town of Ulster. It was at least 5 years ago at this point. We've had it programmed and in the docket and getting it ready to go for quite a while now. There were a number of concerns, particularly that the city had, and we told the city, quite frankly, unless the town is on board, it doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to engage in a corridor management plan unless we can really go the distance here. And the town was very much cooperative and agreed that it's time to take a detailed examination of this road through the corridor management planning process. So we're really happy to get it underway, and we have a great technical advisory committee of volunteers established today. Thank you all for volunteering. Why don't we go and do some introductions at this point. I'd really like to hear not just who you are, but a little bit briefly about your background and interest in the corridor, and we'll take it away. So why don't I start? I'm going to just go with Emily. If you could give a brief introduction and then maybe pass it along for us.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. I'm Emily Flynn. I'm the Director of Health and Wellness for the City of Kingston. I use she, her pronouns. I get to sometimes coordinate some transportation projects for the City of Kingston. As part of our Live Well Kingston Commission, we have a subcommittee called Travel Well. That's part of why I get to be in this meeting today. And I see my friend Tom Polk on there. Tom, if you can hear me, do you mind introducing yourself?
No. Tom Polk. I am now retired from the YMCA bicycle program, which I headed up for 13 years. And during that time, I was also the chair of the Kingston Complete Streets Advisory Council. So I'm still very actively interested in transportation in the town and the city and the county. So I'm glad to be here.
Welcome, Tom.
Who's
Why don't we
next?
pass it on to Luke?
Hi, everybody. I'm Luke Kaiser. I've been a lifelong resident of Kingston, lived on Albany Avenue for quite some time, growing up as a child. I know some of you as well. Mr. Dennison asked me to be involved in this committee. I have a property on Albany Avenue, which is Kaiser Funeral Home, and my dad owns a couple other properties on Albany Avenue as well. And I'm excited to learn more about this and see where I can help and assist. Thank you for including me.
Great. Thank you, Luke, for joining us. And why don't we pass it to Jennifer?
Hi, I'm also a lifelong resident from Kingston originally, grew up on Albany Avenue. My parents' home is still there. We moved back a number of years ago, and now we live right off of Albany Avenue. I have a young kid who goes to Chambers, and so we are up and down this corridor a lot. in our cars, on the bus, walking. So this is really exciting.
Great, thank you, Jen. Why don't we pass it to Chief Berardi?
Good morning, everybody. Kyle Berardi, Police Chief, Town of Ulster. 26 years of law enforcement experience. Resided in the city of Kingston, Town of Ulster my whole life. 10 years as the police chief, and obviously I travel Ulster Avenue on a regular basis. And very intricate knowledge, obviously, of the concerns and issues that Ulster Avenue, Albany Avenue have, as it affects my agency regularly. So.
Great. Thank you so much for joining us, Kyle. I should note that Kyle's better half, Kate Berardi, is the principal of Chambers Elementary. Obviously, it's a really busy time of the year for our elementary and all of our principals, so she couldn't be here this morning, but we're really happy that she's going to be on board with the project as well. And also, I should mention that Chief Malinaro from Ulster Hose was unable to make it, but he'll be consulting with us as well. Why don't we pass it on to Andy?
I had to unmute my mic so my dogs don't add an extra. First of all, Brian, thank you for reaching out when you saw my comment. I can't wait to be on this committee. I'm very excited about it. I have been a realtor in this area for almost 27 years. I was born in Kingston, stayed a good amount of time. I lived in Kingston for a long time, and now I'm in the town of Ulster. I have served with many of you on the Complete Streets Advisory Council in the city of Kingston. I've been on the planning board. I've worked on a couple of other different corridor advisory councils. This particular corridor, I travel a lot, and there's so much room for improvement. So I'm so thankful that both the city and the town are willing to take a look at this, and I'm very happy to be part.
Great. We're happy you're joining us as well, Andy. It's great to see you again. Now I can't see through the gallery. Who do we have next? How about Anthony? Thank you.
Just did me.
I think he meant Anthony.
Yeah, I said Anthony. Thank you.
Okay. So, good morning. I'm Anthony Mignon. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of RCAL, which is the Resource Center for Accessible Living. We are the Ulster County Independent Living Center, striving to keep individuals with disabilities living independently in the community. And movability, accessibility is, of course, of great concern, especially on Ulster Avenue. Our RCAL campus is on Ulster Avenue, and so is the DSS campus, Adult Protective Services, Medicaid, Office for the Aging. And we partner with those agencies, of course, a lot, as well as our individuals utilize those services. And if they want to walk even from 0.3 of a mile from their offices to our offices, wheelchairs are going into potholes. Individuals who are blind are not safe. So that's why we're here and why we have a concern.
Great, and we're really happy you're with us as well, especially again with your offices directly on the corridor. It's perfect. Why don't we pass it off to Anna?
Hello, I'm Anna. I'm an environmental educator with Cornell Cooperative Extension. I lived in Kingston, well, town of Ulster for about 10 years. My husband grew up here, and we live right off of Albany Ave or Ulster Ave, just over the town city line. I'm an avid cyclist, runner, stroller pusher. So I'm traveling that corridor a lot, either for personal, family, or work reasons, given that my office is in the plaza.
Wonderful. Did I see Kim on the call? Kim Kelly?
Yes, you did.
Hey, great, Kim. Good morning.
Good morning. So I live in the town of Ulster, just north of Adams. I've been living in this area since 1981. 36 years Girl Scout leader, and 22 years running a nonprofit organization in animal rescue. And I travel that corridor on a regular basis, and I'm very excited to see what the plan is and put some input in there. I kind of mutter under my breath every time I travel through there that something needs to change. And I'm especially concerned with the new development that's going to be going on behind Adams. that it's just going to be a nightmare. So I'm very excited to put some input and hear what everybody else has to say and what the plan is.
Wonderful. Thank you, Kim. Let's see. I know there's still some consultant staff. How about Dennis? Why don't we pass it on to Dennis?
Thank you, Brian. It's good morning. It feels like afternoon. I don't know why. Maybe it's wishful thinking. My name's Dennis Doyle. I'm the planning director for Ulster County. I'm also the director of the Transportation Council, which is a federal creation called an MPO, which is funding the study. I would want to take this opportunity to thank each of you for your time and your knowledge of the corridor for providing that to us today, and look forward to a continuing working relationship as we move through the study and its recommendations. So again, thank you very much.
Now, who have I missed so far?
Bob. I see Bob there.
Bob Dennison.
Hi, how are you? I'm Bob Dennison. I'm the alderman for Ward 6 in the city of Kingston. I've been on the Complete Streets Advisory Council. I'm a retired civil engineer. I was the chief engineer and assistant commissioner for the Department of Transportation for New York State. And I'm interested in a corridor study. I've done a bunch of them. I think it's going to be a great opportunity. So thank you for having me, Brian.
Great. We're really happy to have you as well, Bob. And who else do we have here?
If
Stantec staff?
Yeah, we can go to Phil.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Phil Chafing. I'm an urban designer, urban planner with Stantec. I'll be working closely with Matthew on this project, and very excited to be meeting all of you for the first time today.
And Lance.
Morning, everyone. I'm Lance Punay. I'm an urban planner, urban designer out of the New York City office, and I'll be working on a lot of the mapping and visualizations for the project. So happy to be here.
Great. So I think that covers everyone. Is there anyone I missed? Doesn't sound like it. Wonderful. So at this point, I'm going to hand the floor over to Matt and Phil to run through a few slides that we have for you. We're going to give you some background and give you a sense of the, many of you have served on advisory committees very similar to this one in the past, but some of you are new to the process. We'll give you some background on what the purpose of an advisory committee is. And then we're going to get into really trying to get some input from you on your initial reactions regarding your experiences in the corridor. So take it away, Matt.
Thanks, Brian.
Yeah.
And Phil, you can move us along. So we did some intros. We'll talk about some principles next. Project overview, kind of what we're doing, what the work that we're doing together, and then talk about the corridor itself, and then a little bit about what are the, what do we need to do to really engage even beyond this group. So yeah, we can keep moving. So yeah, Phil, do you want to talk about meeting principles a little bit?
Sure. So just to kind of make sure we're all on the same page here, we just wanted to share a couple of principles for this and for all of the technical advisory committee meetings. First, we invited each of you, or UCTC invited each of you, because you each bring a unique and important perspective, and so we want to allow everybody a chance to share their ideas to help guide the decisions as we move forward in this planning process. We're going to keep our conversation as best we can within the time frame that we have for today and the agenda that we have. There will be future meetings as we go through the process to talk about other details, other aspects of the project. We'll seek to try to keep our focus on sort of the task at hand and minimize distractions to keep this process moving along. So to help do that, we just ask to kind of be mindful, balance the time any one person is spending talking, so we can get a chance to hear from as many different people and different perspectives on each of these during each of these meetings as we can. And to help do that, always tempting, but if you're able to kind of put your phone away just during the course of the meeting to focus on this, we'd really appreciate that focus and attention.
Thanks, Phil. Yeah, do you want to, you can talk about this or I can.
Sure. So as the technical advisory committee, Matthew and Brian started to talk a little bit about this, but there are several important roles starting today and as we go throughout the course of this project. One is to advise the project team, which is the Stantec team here, about this corridor and the different topics that we're exploring. We always say we bring a certain technical expertise to these types of projects, but to really make the projects work, we absolutely rely on the people who are living and using this corridor every single day, experience, as we've just heard through the introductions, driving, walking, biking for work, for family use, for other things. So that is a really important perspective to bring to this to inform and guide, our technical exploration as we go through this process. So to do that, as we said, sharing your ideas about potential solutions, sharing your observations later, even during this meeting, about how the corridor is used today, what sort of issues, challenges, problems you see will be very, very important for us, and we really appreciate those thoughts. Another important role is to help our team reach as many people as we can who might have some interest in this planning project. We'll talk more about public engagement later in the meeting, but as people who are part of the community, many of you have been here most or all of your lives. That's fantastic. So you have networks, you have Facebook groups, you have email lists you're part of, you're part of the schools and other community organizations and stuff. So as we get to points in the process where we're looking to encourage people to attend a meeting or contribute their ideas to a survey or some other tool, we really, really appreciate sharing information that we'll provide with as many people as you can and encouraging them to participate, help them understand why hearing from a lot of people is important. All of that feedback and your feedback is going to help to contribute to an overall vision for the corridor, which is something that's going to guide our work as we get into exploring alternatives. And as we get into the second half of the project, your role is to help review and comment on draft design concepts, draft report materials, let us know if the tone needs to be changed to just sort of fit the local context a little bit more. If something's not clear to you in the report, it's probably not going to be clear to the general public, so we may need to provide a little bit more explanation. So that's another important role as we go through this. So hopefully that gives everybody a little bit kind of better understanding of what we're asking from you as committee members and our role as the project team as we get going. So if there are no questions on that, I'll turn it back over to Matthew to talk about the project itself.
Thanks. Any questions about what you all have gotten yourselves into? Okay.
I just want to make one note before Matt takes off. Yeah. And that's that there's a pretty key stakeholder that is not here in the room today, and that is the New York State Department of Transportation. It's just want to make clear that the New York State DOT does control this corridor. They are very much on board with the project and have attended several other coordinating meetings. They could not be here this morning, but they're very much a partner in this project as well. But just keep that in mind, that any recommendations that we make throughout the course of this project are really going to have to go through New York State Department of Transportation as well.
Yeah, that's a great point, Brian, and that's a perfect segue to to an overview of the project, which is that we're looking at this corridor as a street, and it also serves as a New York State DOT owned road. I won't use the H word for it, but that's technically what it is under the law, highway. But so is every alley. Every public alley is also a highway. So this is the funny thing about how we sometimes talk about these streets, is that, a lot of the time they were designed for a purpose that isn't really what it's being used for today. And we want to update it. I view this in a lot of ways as a corridor update project. We all inherited the streets and roads that we use today. Most of them were not built, even, certainly not within our professional careers and times. Some of them not within our lifetimes. So I think starting with goals is important. And I want to hear what your goals are for Albany Avenue and Ulster Avenue, and specifically for the corridor as a whole, right? If you have a vision, if you've got goals for this corridor, what are they? And we started here with safety, especially for vulnerable users. And that's a term of art, but it can be quite broad, right? When you're walking, or when you're turning left, or when you're biking, or when you're pushing a stroller or shopping cart, or when you're walking includes rolling with a wheelchair. It includes walking with or without all of the senses that we have sometimes assumed people have when we're designing these streets. It includes taking transit. It includes being an older driver. And these are all kind of, it includes being a kid, a passenger sometimes, right? Or sometimes walking, or sometimes biking. So at some point, we're all vulnerable, especially on a corridor like this. That's kind of the point I wanted to make. All modes access is an important goal of this project, as I think as UCTC and the city and the town have communicated to us, that we really need to be mindful of how people are going to be able to walk and bike, as well as drive and take transit. That comfort is important, not just access, right? That we want people to be comfortable using this corridor for the way they get around. And one of the issues that always comes up on a street like this is what's often called access management, or you can think about it as driveway management. There are a lot of driveways that cut across the sidewalks. There are areas where there are no sidewalks because there are so many driveways. And that impedes a lot of the other goals that are listed above that. And then meeting the needs of the existing and future land use of a corridor. So what's going on? What are people doing there? Are you living there? Yeah. Are you shopping there? Yeah. Are you working there? Yeah. Are you going to school there? Yeah. So are we meeting those needs today? I don't think we are, and I think we can do better at that. So any additional goals? This will be our first input point. Andy, you were talking. Oh no, that's right. Any additional goals?
So keep these questions in mind as we go through our slides, because we'll have plenty of other opportunities, to chime in. It's like a fire hose right now.
Yeah, we're gonna information dump a little bit. But as I like to say, I live in the Albany area, but I'm originally from Brooklyn, so feel free to interrupt. So you can keep going, Phil. Overall, the project is a 1-year project. So don't worry, you haven't signed up for a 5-year project. This is the first TAC meeting, so we're ahead of schedule because we originally thought we would start in July, but we're in June, so great. We need to complete a engagement plan, which we're going to do with your feedback, including at the end of the time today. What we're doing right now on the consultant side is assessing the corridor. So that means measuring it. It means doing a site walkthrough, which we're going to do a little bit later today after this meeting. Fortunately, I think the rain's going to be done. We're going to compile all of that into an analysis of existing conditions, of collecting traffic data. And traffic is multimodal inherently when I talk about it, right? So we're collecting data on how many people walk, bike, drive, turn in different movements on the corridor, and how fast they drive, and which crosswalks they use or don't. So we're going to use all of that to analyze essentially how the corridor is working today. By early fall, we'll have that in draft form for you. And we're also going to do what's labeled here as an RSA, a road safety audit. That's essentially a group walkthrough, right? So you'll be invited and we'll want you to invite others. This is a great time to get folks who are maybe not always involved in public meetings. I had a road safety audit last week in Rochester, New York, with a bunch of middle school student council members who were fantastic. I would love for them to be my government locally because they were very thoughtful and insightful about the street and that they walk on and take the bus on every day. Then towards later in the fall, we'll have a final version of that analysis after we get your input and all of the information from the road safety audit. We're going to then dive into developing corridor alternatives. So that's fancy word for what we want to do. And we're going to all talk about that. And we're going to have three, I think we are producing 3 alternatives really for each segment of the corridor, which we'll get into later in this call.
And in case you haven't noticed, I'm guessing all of you travel the corridor probably multiple times a day like I do. The cameras are out, so we are actively gathering that information as we speak. There's got to be at least 30 cameras, MyoVision cameras mounted throughout the corridor. There should be tube counters either deployed now or shortly. I haven't seen them yet, but they'll be out as well. Yeah. So that information is being collected as we speak.
That's right. And then toward winter and spring, we're going to have more public input workshops. We'll have an open house at some point where everyone can come and look at the, or I should say, a potential way to do this, because we want your feedback on whether this is the best way to do it. A potential way to do this is to have an open house where people come and give feedback on the alternatives, and then develop, pick a pick a preferred alternative or recommended alternative, and develop that a little further, and share that out. All of you.
We wanted to just, for those of you paying attention at home and who have followed some of our corridor management plans in the past, some of which have really seen successful implementation, others that have sort of languished. We put a really strong emphasis on alternatives, as Matt just explained, that we really want to show what the variety of options really could be achieved realistically in this corridor, what those options are, and then present them to the public and really just let the public decide what they feel the best series of alternatives will be for this corridor.
So you can think of it as like, well, we're starting with this huge funnel of information, and then we're gonna boil it down a little bit. We're gonna have rough drafts of everything, right? Rough versions of what the corridor could look like. It might be, if you're familiar with street mix, it might be at that level. And feel free, by the way, I love it when people create their own street mixes and send them to me. So, if you like doing that, do that. And then, and as we progress, the material will get more and more polished. So if it doesn't look too polished yet, that's on purpose. Okay. So yeah, we can move on from schedule, unless you have schedule questions. Okay, so we're in the kickoff. We're developing the public engagement plan is the first part of this. We'll be meeting with Brian and his team pretty regularly, up to every 2 weeks, and we're talking every day or two at this point. So as we get started, but what we need to do together is create a plan for engagement going forward. Okay, can keep going. I talked a little bit about the corridor assessment already. I didn't mention crash data, but that's obviously a crucial part of this. We're going to look at where UCAT stops, where it gets flagged down, get ridership data, ideally. We're going to look at where and how the things like storm sewers interact with the street, which is, we're not going to do what's called a full topographic survey, but when we're on the corridor, we're going to just note where those things are so that we know, what's easy and what's hard to do later. Can you keep going? Brian mentioned the data collection. This is just to show you an example of how the pedestrian data is being collected, because I think it's kind of cool. And big thanks to Chris for making this happen. We developed together a little quick data collection plan, and you can see kind of the pink is where the pedestrian detectors are, and where people will be counted. So this includes beyond existing crosswalks to some extent, right? So we'll get people who are crossing in an intersection. I should say, sorry, the pink is the crosswalks, yellow is where people are being counted. And blue is the places where motor vehicle volume and speed are being counted. So cars and trucks going by, how fast they're going, how many of them. Oh, yes. Thanks, Dennis. Okay, we can keep going. This is an example of kind of a map that we made for the New York State Thruway Authority of nearby crashes. So we'll have similar information for this corridor using 5 years of data. This is actually a little more polished than we'll get at the corridor alternative stage, but thinking about 3 different concepts for each of the segments of the corridor, and your feedback will very much be needed.
Can you maybe address what Dennis's question was regarding street mix? Because that was a term you would use.
Yes. Oh, Dennis, I thought you were answering what it was. Okay, yeah. Street mix is an online interactive puzzle piece game. Put the pieces together of what a street could look like. It's free. It's streetmix.net, and it's pretty easy to start using. One of the things we actually do sometimes, and maybe we can have an in-person event together where we do this, is where we actually do that with puzzle pieces.
Oh, that would be awesome.
It's pretty fun. I will warn you though, I did that with kids once, and they created cross sections that had no motor vehicle travel lanes whatsoever. So be ready. Just trees and benches, grass. Yeah, okay, so we can keep going. We're going to analyze these alternatives, and what that really means is to try to think about what are the real pros and cons for you as the people using the street. What would happen? What would happen to the comfort of people walking? That's pedestrian level of traffic stress is an evaluation method for that. What would happen to the comfort of people biking if we did each of the potential alternatives? We're using a program called Synchro, which just lets you use all of the traffic data that we collected, all the pedestrian, bike, and motor vehicle volume that we're collecting right now, and figure out, well, what would happen if we tweak the street this way? What would happen if we kind of tweak signal timing a little bit this way and repurpose this lane? And what happens if this lane becomes a turn lane instead of a through lane, and all of that stuff? And I think it's important that, at least from my perspective, thinking about the time that it takes to travel along the corridor in every mode. So that includes buses, and that includes motor vehicles. Thinking about travel time rather than thinking about level of service, which was a very common way of evaluating, and remains a very common way of evaluating motor vehicle traffic conditions. But it's just level of service just tells you how slow a traffic signal is, how long you have to wait at each traffic signal. You can use the same software to essentially say, today it takes 8 minutes to do this trip. In alternative A, B, C, it might take 8.5 minutes. It might take 7.5 minutes. That's the kind of thing that we're going to think about rather than LOS, mostly. we'll create recommended alternatives. Things will start to get a little bit prettier at this point. This is a photo simulation we did of a different project. And this is an important point that I wanted to make earlier, but I'll make it now. We're really looking at short-term, medium, and long-term options for the corridor, because we want this to be very implementable. We want this to be something that can be built, that isn't just a plan that sits on a shelf for 5 or 10 years and then loses momentum. So we think that in order to have a project, a successful project, we think it's very important to make progress early on. And that's where short-term changes and fixes come in. There'll be a draft report and you will be very much needed then. You'll see material you'll see material probably before it becomes the full draft report, and then as it gets into that full format.
For those of you who are wondering, it does appear, although we don't have any confirmation, but it does appear that the New York State DOT is recognizing that the condition of the roadway, the asphalt, is really reaching the end of its useful life and will need to be replaced. The repairs just aren't holding up at this point. It's in pretty bad condition. Anyone who drives their car's probably suffered like mine has driving down the road. So we don't have a date for that yet, but it's going to have to occur within the next 2 to 3 years is what I've been told. That presents a potential opportunity to implement some near-term recommendations in terms of paint. But if we can get something potentially, there's potential for some near-term wins here. If we can show some proven benefits, there may be an opportunity to get them implemented sooner rather than later, but we'll wait and see.
Right. That's exactly the strategy that's been used by a lot of cities and counties and towns to get to a point where, okay, we can make some early changes, maybe through resurfacing and markings. I like to call them paint and post projects, because it's usually as simple as paint and sometimes flexible delineators, posts, and then move toward getting funding for a bigger project, which takes time.
Right.
Yeah, we can move on. Okay, so the fun part, corridor issues. This is where you tell us what's wrong with Albany Avenue from, we're not really talking about the roundabout, but think about it as from the roundabout northward. Let's talk about up until and including Flatbush Avenue.
Yeah, and actually
and not just what's wrong with it. I'm being cheeky.
And so everyone can frame their thoughts as we get into this. We never did talk about the project limits. The project limits are from the roundabout in Kingston is where we started, which we all know was just rebuilt about 5 years ago. And it's heading all the way northeasterly throughout the corridor until the intersection with 9W. So once you go over the CSX overpass, and then you hit that signal at 9W, that is the end of the study area. So yeah, this is an opportunity to open the floor to thoughts, concerns, issues. What's your experience with this section of the corridor? If you have any thoughts that you want to share with us.
What's good about it too? I always ask, the good, the bad, and the iffy. Do we want to go around the room, or
Andy? I see. Yeah, and raise your hand, and we'll just go around robin.
I just have a question. We're just talking right now about the portion from Broadway to Flatbush.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
and then we'll move on.
Yeah, I think the city of Kingston's done a very good job at doing the striping and putting pedestrian signals over the years and stuff. So they've done really good. Is there room for, yes, but that's probably the better part of the. Or once again,
yeah, and it's in the historic properties as well.
Once it gets into 4 lanes, that's really the.
Yeah.
Thank you. And for future reference, Andy, it's really, we can hear you, but it's really difficult. If there's anything you can do to your mic setup for your next comments. Thanks.
Thanks. And then Anna.
I'd also say the good is the addition of pedestrian signals along the way. I know this isn't about the roundabout, but I love the roundabout versus the old traffic pattern. I think that was a phenomenal improvement. I think the biggest challenges in that stretch for me are the quality of the sidewalk. It's very difficult to travel with any kind of wheels. Personally, like if I have a stroller, but I imagine a wheelchair would be very difficult. But I know it's a historic issue, so I don't know if that's the challenge with adding the bluestone. And then there's a couple houses of worship along that stretch that get a lot of traffic. And I would love to see just added safety for pedestrians, specifically during those times that they're heavily utilized because the parking increases significantly. There's also a lack of bike infrastructure. And while there is a safer route to travel, if you go down like down street and onto the path, it is still heavily traveled by bikes, often against traffic. So some sort of bike infrastructure or just improved pedestrian safety and bike safety would be great to see.
Thanks, Anna. I'm glad you mentioned, there are two things I'm glad you mentioned. One is lack of bike infrastructure and the current pattern of bike use, which I noticed some people are on the sidewalk, maybe because they don't want to be on the street, even here. So that's always a sort of, raises my antenna. And then the parking on the weekends, especially, I'm guessing, for the different houses of worship. Yeah. Okay.
How about Jennifer?
So I live in this stretch of the corridor. I live like on St. James, closer to Broadway, and my parents live on Albany Avenue across from Smith Avenue. So this is a stretch that we are traversing a lot. The left-hand turns is quite hard, especially for me living closer to the roundabout. And then even specifically, there's like, I don't know if this has anything to do with the people in this room, but there's like even the trees that are planted along Albany, like into the roundabout, as they've grown over the last few years, they've obstruct the view when you try to take a left-hand turn out of there. I appreciate all the pedestrian crossings, but I have seen the pedestrian crossings, particularly on the more northern side of the, like sort of northwestern side of the roundabout, that where people are trying to cross 587 into the roundabout is really quite dangerous. Like a lot of people they come off of 587 like speeding, and a lot of people are not even yielding or pausing at all into the roundabout. I'm sure I've just anecdotally see a lot of accidents in this area too, just amongst the cars. So as a pedestrian around the roundabout, unless you're on the more southern side, it's gotten better because I think people now are more aware of the pedestrian crossings around the roundabout. But it feels dicey walking around, and I cross that like most days as a pedestrian and as a driver. And then coming up on Albany Avenue, like it's great having the pedestrian crossings there, but I've noticed people are less used to those, and I don't think they're flashing. The ones up along Albany Avenue, they don't have the flashing light. So when people are just standing in that crossing, like especially like near the synagogue, near the church, drivers are just not used to stopping there, especially when there's heavy traffic. And I've noticed that as a driver as well. And that's mostly it. And the sidewalks, as Anna mentioned, I did notice that they're starting to replace the slate there. Like they just even today, they're out there starting to replace that.
Yeah,
it'll be a big difference for strollers.
Thank you, Jennifer. The New York State Department of Transportation has been doing a multi-year sidewalk replacement and throughout the corridor. And they're continuing to do some of that work. I think that's DOT out there today, and they're doing that that bluestone replacement in front of
Yeah.
those two properties. But wherever the segments were of concrete were damaged or heaved, they did replace those last year. So it has improved, which is great news. That DOT took the initiative on this corridor for sidewalks. And then we had Luke.
Yes, I was just gonna mention that they were replacing this bluestone sidewalks. I don't know how far they're going or what the plan is for that, but I did talk to, maybe it was like a foreman last year, because I was curious what was going on. And they said they were going down, but they were gonna leave, they're just gonna replace the bluestone areas, and like if someone had put like asphalt or concrete, they're gonna leave those, I guess. I'm not really sure, but do you know how far they're going with that?
Well, they've done work throughout the entire corridor in the city and the town. We can check with the resident engineer, David Corrigan is a great friend of this office, and he's a member of the Traffic Safety Board as well. And he'll be able to give us updates. I assume they were done when they completed last year, but as we all know, they're doing segments right now. Which seems like maybe they saved the bluestone for this year and just did the concrete last year. Or maybe they were waiting for Central Hudson to wrap up their work. A lot of activity going on in the corridor. So we'll, through the inventory and data gathering process, we'll get to the bottom of that. But I know it's been a 2-year contract, and this is year 2. So whatever work DOT is going to do on sidewalks, if they don't get it done this year, that's it.
Right.
For this round.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Any other hands raised? Any other comments?
We got Tom.
Go for it, Tom.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. This is a question more than a comment, because I do not park on Albany Ave, but I'm wondering how often the parking spots are utilized, and if that's part of the study. Thanks.
We wonder that too. So the one thing is that the city of Kingston is doing a parking study that actually Stantec is on the team for. So we're coordinating very closely with that study. I believe it's going to collect data in a few different areas. And one of the things that we can do, we will, even if that study doesn't formally collect data on this segment of Albany Avenue, will be at least doing some data collection here, some observation. But it's very helpful to know when the peak occupancy is. I know that on weekdays when I've been here, it's been very low occupancy, but obviously we heard, there's
seems like
the church.
The synagogue, certainly on Saturdays, it's definitely quite a bit of parking occurring. And then it'll be interesting to see overnight, because I think some residents in the neighborhood don't have off-street parking, so they have to park on the street.
But but I want to note that doesn't mean the fact that there's parking going on Albany Avenue today doesn't mean that all of the existing parking always has to stay there. Certainly in some of the alternatives, we should be thinking about what else could happen in some of that space. I want to encourage everybody to think creatively about the whole right of way, but especially the curb to curb. So thanks. Other questions, or should we go to Flatbush to Foxhall?
Yeah, let's jump to the next segment.
Great. Yeah, so Phil, we've got our comments up. Okay, great.
So I think everybody knows by now the city of Kingston is doing the Flat Fox project, which should go into construction next year for new sidewalks on Foxhall and Flatbush and other street improvements. And they're doing the underground utilities this year, working from Broadway northwesterly toward our project area. So that's exciting, and much needed improvement to those two streets. But that's where we're looking at now is one of Kingston's many crazy intersections, this obtuse intersection at Foxhall at Kentucky Fried Chicken and Stewart's. Thoughts on this area? I think many of us probably also remember New York State DOT did do a traffic signal upgrade a number of years ago. It was around 2023. I remember it seemed like it was during the pandemic. And they added video detection to a lot of these intersections. All of them, I believe, have video detection. And it didn't go so well. If you remember, when they first flipped the switch, boy, it was a mess out there. I think they've got it figured out, but we're expecting to hear a lot of input on that aspect. Go ahead, Anna.
I remember when they changed that pattern, and it was crazy for a little while. The 2 lanes down to 1, but I travel this area a lot on foot and by car. That exit from the KFC is really complicated. It kind of prevents anybody from being a pedestrian on that side of the street. I think the lights still need some working out too. There's a lot of like red light or red to green happening and vice versa. That doesn't always make sense. And as a pedestrian, you can sometimes wait a very long time to cross here. And so those patterns, it still seems like there's some working out to do. There's also the challenge here with those houses that are there. Anytime they want to enter or exit their homes, it's just nearly impossible, or it looks very challenging anytime you see somebody trying to drive in and out there. And then often you often see people taking a left when they're not supposed to, just to get out of traffic, or cutting through Stewart's is the other big thing that I've seen.
I was going to ask about that because that looks very tempting for someone waiting at the signal who wants to.
Just the aerial view, you're like, oh, I can get around that. And it does often happen.
It seems like I think the only thing preventing it is that it's a busy Stewart's, and sometimes you're going to encounter traffic in the parking lot. Otherwise, people would do it even more often.
But thanks for the signal observations. They might be doing. I'm going to make this up entirely, but they might be doing phase insertion where, they might be essentially, NASDAQ might be running it in such a way that when the signal detects a new bunch of left turning cars waiting, left turning southbound cars waiting to turn onto Foxhall, they might add a signal for them at the end of the phase, or they might add one at the beginning of the phase. They get creative, which can be helpful sometimes, but can be hard to predict for pedestrians, especially.
And I guess the other piece with those lights is that the light for the left turn onto Roosevelt, it's often blocked, that left turn, because everybody wants to because it's the double light, so people just drive through. So that's just another little bit of feedback there.
No, that's helpful.
Yeah, I have a friend who lives on Albany at the Flatbush intersection, and their car was just totaled a few weeks ago, turning out.
Wow.
But I think it was in the mix of when they're doing all the construction, all the Central Hudson stuff, and it's especially in the middle of the day, it gets really crowded there.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm sorry about your friend's car. I hope they were okay. Okay. Any other observations here before we move on?
And you can see the city line is shown with the dot at Ulster and Kingston, just past Rentham Street. But this is really kind of a transition area that we all know when it transitions from the 2-lane segment gradually into the 4-lane segment, and very gradually it starts to turn into an entirely different road as we move through this area.
Yeah, and I'll note that there's a lot of lane drops and lanes that emerge in this segment, and that's there for a reason, right? It's a traffic pattern that's trying to manage all the traffic that's turning onto Foxhall, turning onto Flatbush, turning on and off from Roosevelt, and that can be it can be helpful at times. It can be difficult to understand at other times. And as you pointed out, sometimes people misuse the auxiliary lanes, the turn lanes.
Tom, did you have a comment?
Oh, yeah, I see.
Yeah. Whatever can be done for this intersection to make it safer and more accessible for walkers and people who are not in vehicles, I hope the study can come up with some good ideas.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
Okay.
Why don't we move on to the next segment? I think this might be the last segment.
Yeah, this is going to be the last one. Yeah.
So essentially oh, great.
Yeah, so
Thanks,
we've got Flat Fox, good. And Flat Fox is going all the way up to Albany Avenue or just before.
Emily, can you tell me the project extent of the Flat Fox project? It might not actually include that segment between Flatbush and Albany Ave.
That sounds correct. I'm looking at the web page now, and I'll look and confirm, but that sounds right.
Okay. Yep, great. Thank you.
So here in the town of Ulster, Ulster Avenue is mostly 4 lanes. It develops into a 5-lane cross section. Pardon me, as it's approaching 9W, and then it kind of becomes 4 lanes again at 9W, which is interesting. 3 approaching 9W and 1 receiving. So there's some interesting things going on here. There's sidewalks on one side, but not the other. Andy, tell us.
So I live at the very end of Harwich Street, and I can either access, here was one of my key things and why I wanted to be part of this is anyone who lives back in the Roosevelt Park area, from Roosevelt Avenue all the way out to Esopus Avenue, we literally only have maybe two traffic lights that will serve us. So our back streets take a lot of traffic so they can get to a traffic light to make a safe left. We also own a property on the end of Vincent and Cook Avenue. All of those streets, they all use those back roads to get to the Esopus Avenue light. So with these left turns, as we look at this corridor, I think the left turn signals and the left turn capability really has to be part of what we're looking at. There are a lot of people back here. There are no sidewalks. There are a lot of children. There are a lot of people walking back here. And they speed back through here, and they all do it so they can get to the lights to turn safely. So, and there's really only 2. There's one at Rentham and there's one at Esopus, because the one by the county offices don't serve the public. So that was my big concern, is just 2 safe lefts in such a long stretch.
Great.
Yeah, that's very helpful to know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Looks
like Anna.
Anna?
Oh, and then
Chief Berardi.
Sorry, I've got input on every section. I live just off the section on Southfield Street, just over the town city line. But the biggest challenges are left-hand turns, like Andy was saying. Often use Stallman to get out, and sometimes it's fine, and sometimes it's really hard. But she's right, you either have to wind your way through the neighborhood, where there are no sidewalks, so there's lots of families. It's a really great neighborhood to have a family in. So there's increasing number of families, number of children out, which is wonderful on one end, but just want to make sure it's safe for them. So those left-hand turns off those small streets are really challenging. And then on Ulster itself, even if you're on the side with the sidewalk, that sidewalk is often very choppy. It's often heavily interrupted by very wide entrances to businesses, or their driveways are very wide. And even if you're sometimes we'll do walking loops, even if you're on it for like a quarter of a mile, it feels very unsafe even on the sidewalk. So I'd love to see sidewalks on both sides, maybe some protection from the roadway if it remains at 4 lanes. And then you're also getting up to Morton, you're getting into Chambers. And so just having that school there, it would be great to see more safe infrastructure for walking and biking, to allow access to the school where you don't have to wind all the way through the neighborhood, and through there's this housing complex at the back behind the baseball fields behind the school. So you kind of have to wind your way all the way through if you want a safe route to walk or bike to Chambers. And that's my input on this section.
Thanks, Anna. Yeah.
Thank you.
You said.
Do you want to go Chief Berardi?
Thank you, Brian. Obviously, my opinion of this is it's kind of two-part. One, obviously working in the town of Ulster for the last 24 years, I know the town of Ulster was never designed to be bicyclist, pedestrian friendly. It was more motorist focused. But over the years, as I've seen my career, I've definitely seen the increase in pedestrian and bicyclist usage along the Ulster Avenue corridor. Obviously, as the momentum of Ulster County has changed, so did how people transgress through town here. While keeping that into consideration relative to sidewalks and crosswalks and things like that. Also, I would like to focus on improving the ability to turn. Obviously, it's the Ulster Avenue section is a highly business district, but it has residents behind it. The turning capabilities often impede the flow of traffic because of the way the roadway is designed. And obviously, I'm privy to the ability of pull-up statistics. This section of roadway, we've seen 24 accidents year to date on this section of roadway compared to 27 last year. So we're just about the same number. I mean, only three accidents off. But obviously, any accident is one too many, so to speak. So.
Chief, I'd like to coordinate with you on getting some of the more recent data, just because NISDOT only has through a year ago, essentially. So that'd be great.
Yeah, that's not a problem at all. Like I said, I'm sitting here on my desktop. I'm not that I'm not paying attention. I'm pulling up my records management as you guys are talking, just to kind of get some statistics out there. So
I appreciate that.
Great.
And then that'd be great, Anthony.
Anthony.
Good. Hi, I'm trying not to be repetitive. I've been, everybody has said really great things that have prevented me from chiming in. But I did want to note, first of all, the fact that there's sidewalks only on one side, even the one side is questionable, that they are actually sidewalks. Yeah, there's some concrete down, but I wouldn't necessarily call it a sidewalk at many of the areas. What's left is not passable. But on the side that does not have sidewalks, you have a lot of issues with safety as far as people who are trying to use it as sidewalks, climbing up and down over grass and hills. And the other thing I wanted to bring into question is, I go through every morning, rainy days, really rainy days. If you're coming from over the CSX transition and heading down towards the traffic circle, if you go too fast, any pedestrian, you're going to soak them and ruin their day. Like that, the water builds, and the amount of water that gets pushed really would literally soak a person to the bone from head to toe. So we have to make sure that that's a consideration.
Thanks, Anthony. Yeah, that's a big downside of having fast traffic right next to the sidewalk. Right?
Drainage.
Do we have Luke?
Luke, did you have your hand up previously? Are you good?
Yeah, I did have my hand up. I was just gonna mention the shoveling of the snow and people having to go out on the roadway. I just kind of missed Anthony's comment, so I don't know if he said that, but especially last year, I noticed a lot of people on the sidewalk and then having to go out onto the road to walk to get to the next available, like, shoveled sidewalk portion.
That's a great observation.
Yeah.
You know, it's a problem we face throughout the Northeast. Superintendent of Highways, Frank Petramali, is on our advisory committee as well and couldn't be here. We've asked him about snow removal, and he's indicated, interestingly enough, that it's the responsibility of the property owner, but the town just does it when they're able, and they do the entire stretch to 9W, which is, it speaks to a certain level of dedication and commitment to safety by elected officials in the town of Ulster. But they have no responsibility to do that necessarily. So, but it's definitely a great consideration to mention, and snow storage too.
Right. Where do you put it?
When we get big storms.
Does it build up on the sidewalk? Does it build up in the right lane? Okay.
Anything else? Did Anna, did you have another comment, or was that just a?
I just wanted to make note that the public library is also in this stretch.
Yeah.
And it's on the side without a sidewalk, and there is a crossing signal and a light to get there, but it's like the saddest little sidewalk on the library side, and then it just ends in like their grass yard. So I would love to see improved access to the public library, because it is it is very difficult to walk to currently.
Yeah. A great point.
Anthony, did you or Chief Berardi? I see hands up.
I did just want to note, because she said saddest little sidewalk. I've noticed in some of these towns around that we're now putting in very cool, interesting curb cuts that lead to nothing. There's a nice curb cut with one piece of sidewalk, like one little square, and then grass. I would like to make sure that if we're adding sidewalk to the other side or pretending to that curb cuts that do nothing and go nowhere. We love curb cuts. I'm the accessibility guy. But having them lead to grass and hills is just not of any value.
You're touching on the profound the profound missing promise of ADA, that it's like, okay, we're responsible for this part, but not this part.
Right.
Yeah.
Chief Berardi, then Emily.
Sorry to chime in again. Just two things. I was going to speak about the highway department. Obviously, those guys are phenomenal. They do maintain those sidewalks. Obviously, like Frank says, he's not required to, but they do it out of consideration for accessibility. Obviously, big storms hold them up from doing it immediately, but they get to them eventually by clearing them. Second, obviously, I'm speaking for Chambers and obviously my wife. I know for firsthand, because I'm usually part of it, their evacuation drill, which obviously they're required to do by state ed, requires a minimum of 2 police officers as well as staff to safely cross an entire school, because their evacuation point is the Kingston City School warehouse, which is on the opposite side of where Chambers Elementary School would be. So obviously in a real emergency, I don't know how conducive that would be, because of the fact is they're kindergarten through 4th graders trying to cross a 4-lane highway. So obviously that is obviously a serious concern of mine as well. So
yeah, that's a very important point. You said 2 officers plus.
Yeah, so we respond to assist, obviously, because we want to make sure it's a safe event. Like I said, it's 2 officers, because you have to block off or make sure you're stopping traffic going northbound and southbound. Plus, there's staff obviously that assist in the crossing. So, as it's only a few minutes, right? It's maybe 5-10 minutes to cross, and then they go back over and do a head count and 5-10 minutes back. It is quite a project. Should you have an emergency, obviously, most likely a major emergency law enforcement is not going to be available to assist them to cross.
Then Emily, did you have a comment?
I love all this conversation about sidewalks. I would love to take just a quick moment, if you don't mind, Brian, just to let people know, if they're not aware, the City of Kingston is currently doing a sidewalk improvement plan. In the chat, I put a link to the project page. There's currently a live mapping tool where you can drop a pin to give us feedback on specific sidewalk improvements that you'd like to see. This will be a deeper conversation about the funding for the improvements and creation of sidewalks. So it's not just as simple as deciding what sidewalks we want to improve. It's really a deeper discussion about how, if we can find innovative funding strategies. So thanks for letting me put that out. I love the conversation about sidewalks happening here today.
Thanks, Emily.
Yeah, thank you.
Great. And then, oh, Dennis.
Thank you. Thank you, Matt. I just had a quick question for the group, particularly in this 4-lane section that you're currently working on. Is what kind of weaving activity that you see during your transition of that corridor, you're transiting the corridor?
Go ahead, Andy.
There are the ones who will watch the speed limit and try and stick to 30, 35, and then there are the others that feel that a 4-lane highway deserves a 55-mile-an-hour speed. So I do find people weaving in and out speeding. My other pet peeve is somebody in the left lane telling somebody to make the left turn while somebody's coming up in the right lane, barreling up doing 55, and then bam. I've seen several accidents like that. So that was the one big thing I have about the 4-lane, no turn lane kind of a thing. So I do see a lot of speeding and weaving in and out, and a lot of it.
Thanks.
I suppose that's one benefit of the poor pavement condition is people have been slowing down a little more recently.
Only in the right lane. Only in the right lane.
Only in the right lane.
Not in the left.
Yeah. Yeah.
Go ahead, Chief.
I was going to add that as well, as fresh pavement is wonderful. It definitely causes concern for increased complaints of speeding. So sometimes poor pavement does just as well slowing people down as other type of traffic control.
Yeah.
Inadvertent speed humps. Yeah.
We want to attribute that comment to you in the notes. Just.
And we have. Oh, I saw Kyle. Oh, that was you. Yeah. Okay.
Great.
That might be it for this part.
That's wonderful.
Great.
What else do we have?
We wanted to talk a little bit about. Okay, great. Yeah, we've got some. Yeah, these were the notes that we had created. This was a photo that was submitted to us of the new sidewalk the New York State DOT put in, but they couldn't move the utility pole during that project. And so this is just, I like this. I hate this, but I like this as an example of of how difficult it is to coordinate the different pieces that need to come together in order to create good accessibility. And so sometimes maybe we can design around that. And by the way, you can see a storm drain basin on the street in there just to make things a little more complicated. We saw the sidewalk is back of curb, we call it, meaning right next to the motor vehicle traffic lane. Sometimes the sidewalks are obstructed. We sometimes call the really wide ones drive walks, the really wide driveways drive walks, where you're walking along a driveway for a long distance. And obviously the crossing conditions are quite difficult. There's some uncontrolled crosswalks, meaning it's just a marked crosswalk that goes all the way across, even in this 4-lane section, and that's always a concern. Crosswalks are usually there for a reason. Usually it takes some effort to get them put in. And so if the pedestrians there aren't getting any help crossing, that's sometimes an issue. Or I should say that is an issue. Okay, great. Now let's talk about engagement a little bit. So I kind of mentioned some of the things that we wanted to do already, but just some principles. We want everyone to be aware really early, and that's this group, but it goes beyond this group, right? I think you put out a notification that there's data being collected. We want folks to know about this project. We want the decision-making to be transparent to everyone, to all of you and everyone else who's involved. The criteria for figuring out is something a good idea or not, that's something that we're going to want your feedback on. So not just, okay, I like this drawing, I don't like this drawing, but should we be, what should we be prioritizing as we develop the cross sections? And we're going to try our best to share how your feedback is used, and also if there's something that we heard, we understood, but doesn't fit within the project scope or something like that, we want to share that with you too. Okay, can go on to the next one. So some of the things we can do are, and some of these are things that we'll do as a project team or with staff. Some of these are things that we'll do with all of you. And some of these are things that we'll do with everybody who wants to be involved, even just a little bit, and who can't commit necessarily to being on the TAC. But stakeholder mapping is something that I would love to do a little exercise with all of you at some point. We've done a little bit of that, even just to get to this point. But I'd love to have your input as to other stakeholders who we should involve, and we can actually leave 5 minutes for that. Road safety audits I already talked about. We may be able to set up a pop-up station for feedback, maybe in front of a high volume location. Oh, hey there. Oh, Westy. An open house is a really great way to have folks, come in for just a few minutes, understand the project visually, and listen to us chatter about it, and then give us feedback. I know, we've got some businesses here represented. There are a lot of businesses along the corridor, obviously. We'd love to have some kind of a conversation with business owners or business employees, or employees at the county even, who can't necessarily get to one of these meetings, or to an after-hours meeting.
Yeah, we'll be able to, two of the biggest employers on the corridor are Kingston City School District and Ulster County.
Right.
So those are two very large pools of opinions that we really hope to tap in very deeply to, with assistance from, obviously we can cover Ulster County pretty well. And then the school will be great to get, and the parents, having the Chambers elementary staff on board with this project is just going to be, I think, a really big help for us.
Obviously there'll be a web page, and we're going to do an online survey. You can kind of see an example in the upper right. We have interactive mapping capabilities, and we'll launch that when the time is right, to get more public input on the issues, and then we'll also be able to use that website to get input on the corridor concepts. Lower right picture was a separate bikeway protection device petting zoo that we did in Rochester. We got samples of all these different things you can use. You can also use them to protect pedestrian areas that are on the roadway, or even pedestrian areas that are on the sidewalk. It can be very helpful to have something vertical. So that's just a fun little exercise. So if you go, actually, I think the next slide is going to be a thank you slide. But if you go back, actually, Phil, go back to that. Of these, what would you want to be involved in? Or what do you think would be the best way to reach people? Like as a resident, as a business person here, as a stakeholder, which of these would you think your colleagues and peers would actually use?
The online survey seems very easy for folks, especially if you know some of your neighbors and you can just text them the link to the survey. That seems like a very kind of low lift way to get the word out and get feedback.
Great. Mobile friendly online survey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We will very likely be hosting some sort of in-person event, for lack of a better word, open house. So we'll be interested in finding a really good location. Temple Emmanuel may work, or the church next door, the school, the library, even the county building has great parking. It doesn't necessarily have the best spaces for public meetings, although we could probably work something out. So we'll certainly want some input on a good location as well for an open house. We have the basic web pages up there. There's going to be more there. We're really just getting started. It's kind of a placeholder. And I know I've shared that, and it's just a very brief description of what the project entails. But we plan on building that out.
This is where I might want to ask, are there other stakeholders who we should definitely be reaching out to who we haven't mentioned yet?
There are just two absences that I haven't mentioned. Frank Almquist is a town resident. He's also on the Ulster County Planning Board representing the town. Diane Golnick saw the request as well. And yeah, and thank you, Chief. We did reach out to Congregation Emmanuel, and we have 2 volunteers who had conflicts with the meeting as well. So we're in touch with them, and they're very interested in seeing some near-term improvements by the temple as well.
That'd be great to have something at Chambers, have something at the southern end of a corridor. And I think, was that Bob who mentioned St. John's? Yeah. Great options.
Tom, did you have something?
Well, 2 things. One, I think all these potential actions are great, and if we can undertake them, I think they're going to reach a different populations. And secondly, what about UCAT?
Yeah.
Oh, sure. We can put flyers on the buses. Obviously, we have something of a hub at DSS these days, and that can be a location to gather information as well. Yep.
Well, I was thinking about participating as an advisor or as a stakeholder.
I can certainly reach out. These days, I'm finding that our transit staff is really up to their eyeballs in managing day-to-day operations. And so I will certainly offer, and it's probably going to be most productive if we do a certain level of in-reach, directly come to them to get input rather than asking them to sit on a committee. But I communicate with UCAT on a weekly basis, if not more often, and we will make sure that their input is gathered as well.
The other thing is, there was a transit users group. I don't know if they're still around or not.
They are, yes, the TRIAC. Good point. And that is the chair is Ella Ray Condrat. We can reach out to Ella. I think I'll see her today.
And then Anthony, you had something?
Some of it was said already. At the hub, which is where DSS and Adult Protective Services and all that come together, that is a good data collection point. The way that you're going to need to do that is actually have somebody there, like with a clipboard, approaching people, because or something similar to that notion. They're not going to go follow a link later. They're not going to see a sign, and that's just not going to happen.
Yeah, maybe that's a good place for tabling or something like that. Yeah, that's great. Okay, awesome. Well, so in the 2 minutes we have remaining, I wanted to offer just next steps that we'll have another meeting, and I want to have a time when we can at least bring you some of the initial findings and get feedback in a more formal way. But I also want to say that another next step is, unless it violates some county rule, please feel free to contact us and let us know, here's a condition that is, that's present right now. Here's something that I took a photo of something. Here's something I forgot to mention. Just get in touch.
And
we'll be in touch about scheduling.
Yeah, exactly. And there'll be, I think, some meeting minutes that we'll share.
Right.
And I'll provide the appropriate contact. I have no policy with folks reaching out. It's nice to CC me on any information you might provide Matt and his team, just so I'm aware. But you can certainly reach out, and we'll provide that contact information if you don't have it in your inbox already.
And I'll put my email address here, though you probably all have it on the invitation.
Anthony, I see your hands up. Did you have one more comment, or?
Yes, RCAL has recently formed, our board has recently formed an accessibility task force to try to assist towns with having their business districts be more accessible. And we have wheelchair users and mobility device users that we can ride along or roll along and go with people to show you firsthand what we experience in certain areas. So if you would like us to deploy at any point and walk along somewhere with you guys, or show you what the hell of a situation is, Judy Hunan once said, it takes one wheelchair to roll under a bus and stop it. So we're there for you.
Yes, please.
That's great.
Yeah. I think the walk audit would be a fantastic time to do that, and we can figure out whether that's part of one larger walk audit or whether it's its own separate run through, depending on how much, basically depending on how many folks we want to get on site at once. Yeah.
Whatever you need.
Thank you.
That's great. And Andy?
I had one other thought with the planning departments, especially when they're putting in, new businesses. I hear that there might be either a 7-Eleven or something that was going to go over by the old Speedway and whatnot. And I think that before they grant I don't know if that's happening or not, but with the new businesses and the proposals that are going in, that those applications, these concepts of safe egress and exit and entrance is part of it, because it doesn't seem that there seems to be a lot of thought process in those. So I think maybe somebody from one of the planning boards and stuff like that, or whatever, I think it's good to have them up to date on what this concept is as well.
Great.
Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, we're at time.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to be in touch, as I mentioned. Please keep sharing ideas and thoughts and observations, and we'll be in touch about scheduling the next meeting. And I really thank all of you, first of all, for being able to be here on relatively short notice, and for the time that you've spent with us and the insights you brought.
Yeah, this is fantastic. Very productive.
Great group.
Meeting.
Yeah.
Thank you all.
Right.
So we'll follow up with a few points, and otherwise have a safe start to summer. Little plug for an upcoming county initiative, and we'll talk to everybody soon.
Brian, do you want to mention your workshop tonight?
Oh, yeah. And if anybody is interested, thank you, Emily. The Ulster County Traffic Safety Board, in coordination with the New York State Bicycle Coalition, is hosting a forum and training on New York State law relevant to e-bikes and e-mobility. And that's over at the Kingston campus at SUNY Ulster on Marys Ave. We've got a 4 o'clock session specifically for law enforcement officers, but frankly, there's plenty of space. All are welcome. And then there's a 6 o'clock session that is targeted. The subject matter will be a little more watered down, and it's targeted for the general public, and more discussion, and the county executive will be there for that as well. So if you're looking for something to do tonight to kill some time and learn, or maybe vent a little about e-mobility, We'd love to see you there. So we did require registration, but there is space available, so you can just walk in if you'd like.
Good. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Emily. And thank you, everyone. We'll talk to people soon. Enjoy the rest
All
of
right.
your day.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks.